This is Professor Susan Gillis, and this video will help you learn how to interview your client in class. We're going to look at a three-step model, and we're also going to learn the funnel technique. Let's look at the first step in the model, preliminary problem identification. You should greet your client and try to establish a rapport. This is very important as you may have to ask your client personal or embarrassing questions later in the interview. It's important to identify your client's problem. Here we know that Miss Parsons has been injured in a collision with a vehicle while rollerblading. You want to solicit your client's desired outcome. Is Miss Parsons' goal simply to recover money, or does she have other remedies in mind? You also need to solicit Miss Parsons' ideas about the case. In an ideal lawyer-client relationship, a lawyer takes the client's ideas into account in developing a strategy. Finally, you want to find out if Miss Parsons has any other concerns. For instance, does she desperately need funds to pay medical bills, so wants to settle early? Finally, give your client a brief explanation of how you plan to conduct the interview so they understand that you may ask them the same question repeatedly and may have to delve into personal topics. We're going to presume that most of the preliminary problem identification stage has already occurred, and in class instead we're going to focus on steps 2 and 3. Your first job in interviewing the client is to get a thorough timeline of events. You want your client to give you the big picture, and the way to gain a big picture is to ask the client for a chronological list of events as they see it. Your danger if you go into specific questions too early is your client won't recognize what's important and may omit crucial facts. So instead, ask a broad question such as, what happened the day of the accident? Can you describe for me how the problem arose? So that the client will give you a big picture chronological description of the events from her perspective. The next stage is theory development. You have to ask yourself as a lawyer, what is your legal theory? In other words, what's your claim and what defenses do you expect to be raised? You also then want to develop questions which draw from the client the key facts that go to those claims and those defenses, and questions that bring out any other details you need to draft a complaint. So plan your questioning based on the legal elements of your claim that you have to prove or disprove. Here you should anticipate that one of the claims you may well bring is a negligence claim. So what questions are you going to ask to bring out key facts about breach, causation, and damages? I want to spend a little time now talking to you about the funnel technique for questioning clients. Remember, your first step is to encourage narrative by eliciting a timeline. So you're going to start with a very broad, open-ended question about the timeline. Next, for each topic, for instance, how the defendant acted negligently, you want to still ask open-ended questions. You want to be at the top of this funnel asking open-ended questions about the key topics. Open-ended questions are who, what, when, why. For instance, when did you first see the truck? What happened next? This still allows the client's narrative to drive the interview. Only when you finish asking open-ended questions do you want to start going down the funnel, asking clarifying questions, and then finally a few closed-ended questions. What do we mean by clarifying questions? What you're attempting to do is check you understand your client's description of the facts. So you would ask summary questions. For instance, so you first saw the truck when it hit you. Only after you've asked summary questions to check your understanding of the client's facts should you then ask closed-ended questions. These are yes, no, one-fact questions. For instance, the truck was in the middle of the lane. Is that correct? That's a closed-ended question. So try and use this approach in class when you interview your client. Open-ended timeline question, then open-ended questions about the key facts you want to prove to develop your claim. Only thereafter are you going to ask summary questions to clarify, and finally close-ended questions. What follows is an example of lawyers using the funnel technique. This was created by the ABA, and it focuses on how to interview your child. I hope after watching this, you will be able to successfully interview your client in class. Remember, there's also a handout on Twin which gives you instructions on how to do the interview. Thanks very much.
Method called the funnel technique to encourage the child to give their account of what happened and to develop facts important to the case.
Asking open-ended questions, letting the kid run with it, and then following up with narrow questions. And I find it to be extremely effective.
In the first stage of the funnel technique, the lawyer allows the child to tell the story uninterrupted. In the second stage, the lawyer asks open-ended questions to further develop facts. In the third stage, the lawyer confirms facts through a series of narrow, close-ended questions. Here is an example of the first stage, where the lawyer allows his client to speak uninterrupted.
So, why don't you tell me what happened when Oscar got hit?
There was one particular game we all wanted to play, which was called WrestleMania. And you throw the person in a body slam by throwing them onto the floor. And then, out of nowhere,
I let them tell me the story at least once, if not more times, all the way through without my asking any questions.
It shows the child that you're going to let them speak, that you're not going to cut them off, that you don't discredit their story because they're a child. But it also begins to reveal to you their view, where they're sitting in this whole narrative, in this whole story, their perspective on it, what's important to them.
Stage 2 of the funnel technique is your chance to track back through the story using open-ended questions starting with who, what, where, when, why, and how to clarify the story and continue to develop facts.
Okay. So, let's go over that again slowly so I can understand each part. When did it all start?
It was a month ago. Me and my brother were staying with our foster mom, Deirdre. And we had seen a show on TV called WrestleMania.
Oh, what's WrestleMania?
WrestleMania is when you throw the person in a body slam by throwing them onto the floor.
Tell me more about that. Does it hurt?
No, because we had put pillows down on top of the rug that was in the room. So when you fell down, it didn't really hurt that much. And we were all doing it to each other. I mean, Oscar was doing it too, so.
Yeah?
Yeah, and then Shorty got mad because he said we had thrown him down too hard, and he picked up a bat, and he had hit Oscar with the bat. And that was it. And the police came.
What did Shorty do with the bat?
He had poked Oscar in the stomach with it.
Poked?
Yeah, poked.
And what happened to Oscar?
Oh, well, Oscar sort of fell down holding his stomach, crying.
Can you show me what Shorty did?
Yeah, he picked up a bat and said he threw me down too hard, and he poked him in the stomach with it.
Well, how soon?
Open-ended questions just allow the child to tell you what's most important to him. What did the child notice and observe?
Stage 3 of the funnel technique takes place deeper into the client relationship. The lawyer has already heard each of the following facts from the child and is using narrow questions to reconfirm and clarify the facts that are most legally relevant to the case.
Did they leave you in that room?
Yes.
Did they leave you in there for a long time?
Yes.
How long?
It felt like forever, maybe a few hours.